right, welcome everyone to episode 9 of Before the Tones Drop podcast. I'm Ben with Devin Phil, and today we have the Fire Chief of Sergeant Bluff, Anthony Gaul. Chief, thanks for joining today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you taking time. We got a lot to talk about. We got stuff for you. You're the volunteer fire chief down in Sergeant Bluff. You're also a teacher at West Middle.
Used to be.
Used to be.
I had Ryan Baker. He somehow survived middle school.
You somehow survived.
Well, that's probably more like it.
You had him for 2 years?
I just had Ryan for the year I student taught. I was there.
4 years.
He's
right?
like, remember when you said I wouldn't amount to anything? Like, I'll show you.
7th grade is the toughest 4 years of my life. I tell you what.
Hey, he said it was a redshirt year.
You had a COVID year.
COVID year.
So yeah, I'm at the Career Academy now.
Okay, so he's still in the Sioux City Public
Still
School
Sioux City Public Schools.
Right
Yep.
on.
Perfect. So we're going to talk about that in the Career Academy, especially because that kind of links into feeding people that get into our career path, and hopefully we get some future EMTs, paramedics, and firefighters that work for the department someday. So, Chief, let's go all the way back to the beginning. You want to start where you went to high school and where you grew up and stuff like that?
Yeah, grew up in Sergeant Bluff since I was 2. Graduated from Sergeant Bluff Luton High School in 1991. A couple of you weren't even born then, I know.
So
Don't worry about
you're
that.
Sergeant Bluff native.
I am.
Can't leave.
No, never gone very far. It's all right. It's kind of nice to know your area, know who's there. When you need something, you know exactly who to go to.
Were your parents on the fire department there growing up?
No, neither one ever had any there. Dad was on the council. He was the mayor for a while, but actually some friends in high school, Lawton, had a high school program back then run by Ken Ayers, and his son Corey was a couple years older than me, worked together, and he's the one that got me interested in this.
Cool. So you were in high school then when you first got with was it Lawton or the Sergeant Bluff?
Sergeant Bluff.
Okay.
Sergeant Bluff didn't allow high school kids on at the time. There were a couple in the area. I think Lamar's did at the time.
Yeah.
And Lawton did, so I got on right after graduation.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this later, but Sergeant Bluff, you guys still have a lot of high schoolers.
We do.
With the program, and
actually there's a lot of them working for you.
I was just going to say, I was just going to count.
Yep.
We have at least 5 or 6 that now work for Sioux City Fire Rescue in some way, shape, or form. Might be more than that. Some I don't even know of.
It is crazy. Thinking about all the kids that came from Sergeant Bluff now.
Yeah.
It's like a high school reunion every day at work for them.
That's probably how a lot of people do get started. They're with the volunteer fire department. They're 17, 18. They love it. And
yeah, there's a lot that honestly didn't even know it was an option. I mean, if you don't have a family member, a close friend in the fire service, you really don't know what it's about. I don't think, and it makes it a little tougher. We had one that is a doctor now. He was going to go on a full ride ROTC scholarship and be a political science major. Got on the fire department, fell in love with it, and now he's a physician.
Wow.
And he still volunteers down in Sergeant Bluff.
He doesn't. He's up in the Twin Cities now, but he it definitely changed his life. So you just never know where it's going to go.
Yeah, it's an enjoyable career, that's for sure. So I got off the top there, but you went to high school in Sergeant Bluff and then college?
Yep. Went to University of South Dakota for my undergrad. Majored in education up there, and then went on and got my master's at Wayne State.
Okay.
So.
Was there at that time any thought about trying to do something like this full time in your career?
There was a little thought of it, and I just kind of get to live the best of both worlds right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, was on the department up in Vermilion while I was in college. Even got some experience up there.
Oh, wow.
It was fun to see how other people do things, and at that time, Iowa and South Dakota had a lot of different things. Radio communication was one of the biggest. We've eliminated most of our 10 codes here, but South Dakota had a whole different set.
Yep.
So as if not that far away, but ran things much different than the way Iowa does. So you graduate from USD, and then you immediately start teaching with the Sioux City School District?
I did. I student taught at West Middle in Sioux City, and then was hired there for the next fall, and spent a long time there until the last 5 years here I've been at the Career Academy.
Perfect. And then how has that been in a relationship to being a volunteer in Sergeant Bluff?
As far as teaching and working?
Yeah, doing both of that.
It's tied together pretty nicely through the years. My first few years, I taught what are called exploratory classes, and walked in and they're like, we've got something from the 1950s for this one, literally. I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. And they gave me a lot of freedom. So I think the 8th graders, when I first started, we did a public safety emergency type class where we were out doing things in the buildings, and we had kids on backboards going through the hallways. And
Oh, wow.
it was just a chance to try some new things and let them see what it was like. And then it's where I'm at today. That's what I'm teaching today. It's all fire and emergency services and pre-hospital medical classes.
It caught on, and it was pretty popular because, like you said, not many people just know about it unless they have a family member that's tied to it.
Right.
Yeah, that was the only reason I found out about any of this.
Well, yeah, and your numbers have just been
volunteering,
getting crazy out there from when you started. You guys also do a fantastic job, I think, on your social media presence as far as showing what the kids are doing. So, that's a big thing to other people and other students or whatever, like, wow, this is kind of a cool class, and we're starting to see, from the Career Academy now and your guys' stuff and what you're doing, and now we're finally starting to get that ripple effect out to WIT now, where we actually had this last semester a couple of your kids that went through their first, the Career Academy, and now they're coming out there to continue on with their education and their fire science stuff and everything. So it's kind of neat.
I think you're getting 5 more this next year.
Good.
Wow. Cool.
So
we need the numbers. So
and I know there's at least 3 in the paramedic program.
Yeah.
So,
So teaching's just come easy to you then, after having done it for so long, and then just transitioning into the fire side, teaching and stuff, right?
it does make it a little easier. It's somebody said, you can tell difference sometimes between someone that's a teacher and an instructor, because it does come naturally. And I mean, no disrespect to anybody, because I'm the biggest one myself, but teaching middle school is about the best thing that can prepare you for the fire service.
Right?
Because that's the way a lot of us are. I mean,
I think we're all stuck in a certain level of maturity from middle school yet.
Yeah,
so
middle school be
well, and we like to be active and engaged. We don't like to sit still.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot.
So for the listeners, can we just go over what the Career Academy is and how where it started and where it is now?
Yeah. So the Career Academy, as we know it today, started about 5 years ago, and it is, for lack of better, it's the 4th public high school in Sioux City.
Sure.
Okay.
So we have the block where the Sioux City Public Museum is. That entire block is owned by the Sioux City School District.
Okay.
And the public museum, they had an arrangement there. It's the $1 a year rent, and it's a great relationship. Those people do a phenomenal job of working with us and allowing us to use their resources. But a lot of what the Career Academy does is career and technical education. It gives the kids a chance to try things out, and sometimes they find that, hey, this is something I really like. Sometimes they go, this isn't something I really like. That's a win, because
Absolutely.
it saves them down the road of going down
Money,
a path.
time.
Yeah, and a lot of kids don't know what they like, so they get to try different opportunities, and it's a unique thing. I had to get a second teaching license to teach there.
Really?
So I've got my, I can teach elementary, middle school, some high school, and then I had to get a career and technical ed license. And you have to prove, if you're going to do one of those jobs, you have to prove 4,000 to 8,000 hours in that field on top of things to be able to do that. So we have a lot of unique opportunities for kids, a lot of opportunities for kids to get training, certifications. Our medical field's probably the biggest one, where kids are taking biomedical sciences. You walk into a classroom and they're learning how to do sutures.
Wow.
And,
That's insane.
Yeah.
We got an $80,000 anatomage table a couple years ago, where people have donated their bodies to science. They've been scanned in, and kids can peel back layer after layer. And we had some kids over at the hospital learn how to put chest tubes in. One of the trauma surgeons showed them, and he explained to them why you go on a certain side of the rib because of the vasculature. And they came back and pulled that up, and they could see every vessel that he was talking about.
Cool.
That's really that is phenomenal.
I
Great.
mean,
That's great to hear for the school district.
We just had a class there just to use your guys' room for a classroom not too long ago, because our elevator training we were doing was right down there. And I was like, it was amazing. I was like, man, I wish they had something like that when I was a kid.
Yeah, I will say that fire service wise, when I go out to businesses nationwide and say, hey, I'm teaching a high school fire science program, any way you could send me some sprinkler heads, I'll get boxes of sprinkler heads and working smoke dampers, functioning ones.
Oh, that's so cool.
most people, even at the level of full time, they don't get to see how those operate.
No.
You know, the people in the bureau maybe.
Unless
but
there's a
That's
problem
why
with them and we go and, yep, that looks like, I don't know what that looks like, but I know it's
that's one
something.
thing I think it's huge, and I don't know if the students, I'm sure, don't really realize that what an asset that is, that you are good at procure, like getting stuff. Like you know, it's like beg, borrow, steal, or just like somebody like Anthony just calls it like, hey, this is Anthony Gaul. They're like, oh yeah, we'll send you whatever you need. Like he just drops his name and like he just gets stuff. But you're like super good at like and able to get that stuff, and like and you've networked so much that you're able to find those things and stuff. Because I know, you know, other places it's not that easy. You know, it's always, and then you got to go through. You got to ask this person and this person this, and maybe you finally get something. So that's a huge benefit that I hope your students like really appreciate the things that you're able to do for them, because yeah, it's pretty cool.
I think they do. As they've been out, it's been fun. I've got some students that have joined South Sioux's department, and they got to an alarm call and they were talking about things, and the students were explaining to the firefighters exactly every piece of the sprinkler system, and because we've done it so much, and
That's cool.
businesses let us in to see that.
It's just getting ahead of the game.
So we'll focus on the fire science and the EMS classes that you guys teach. What is the highest potential they can leave the program with in terms of certifications and?
So kids, if they go
such.
through all of my program, they can leave from Western Iowa Tech. They offer certificate degrees, diplomas, Associate Applied Science, and AA and ASs. They can leave with 2 certificate degrees, the EMR one and then the entry-level firefighter.
Okay.
Wow.
They can get their National Registry, Emergency Medical Responder, Firefighter 1, Hazmat Awareness, Hazmat Operations, and then, of course, BLS CPR. And then we add in a lot along the way. I'm a big proponent of using different national certification and credentialing type classes. They're not the 80-hour blue card, things like that. We don't have time for that, but they go through the national TIMS class, and it's funny because kids will come back in and they're like, ooh, we saw this accident. Now we understand why they're doing this. We understand why they needed to have more than an ambulance just sitting there on the road, because they're protecting each other. A lot through fire protection systems, and we start to build their I Love Me book, to take to an interview someday, or to say, hey, I've been through this, to show that they're willing to learn, they're willing to progress. And then we still stress, hey, you can have all this knowledge, but you get hired somewhere, you learn to do it their way.
Oh yeah.
This is just building some background knowledge for you.
It's a foundation, and you got these kids 20 years old and be at a really high, be hireable at a lot of departments. They could have their paramedic, their EMTB, fire 1, 2, hazmat ops, and that right there is a really solid resume to get in just about any fire department or in the area.
It is, and the other thing we've got, Sioux City has worked well with us, South Sioux, North Sioux, Sergeant Bluff, and the 185th for internships, or
definitely.
parts of internships even. Some we can do a whole 60 hours with, and others they'll do time in and out. They've ridden with Sioux City Fire before. They've gone to some special events there, and then we've added in those ancillary things that you don't always think of. They'll go and ride with the tow service for part of a day,
That's
just
cool
see how
too.
that works and how they
makes
interact.
sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
They'll spend a couple hours at the comm center, and they even let one of them get on the radio one day. So they came back just excited as could be, and trying to understand how that whole world works.
That's just forming a good outlook of the world in general, not just like our world. That's just like like riding with the tow guys. Like,
Well, and just infusing that excitement into these kids, because that's, I think, the ultimate goal, with the Career Academy, the meetings we've always, Career Academy and then WIT and then our hiring and stuff is, to get that student that maybe doesn't even have an interest in the fire service or whatever, but he sees his buddy went through Career Academy or sees something on Facebook or whatever. He's like, oh, I'm going to try that out. And they gets like super jacked up, is super excited because all the stuff they get to do. And then like, I'm going to get to this is what I want to do. And then they come out to WIT, and then they get their degree out there and stuff. And then they make the hiring list here and get hired. To see that, fruition would be like pretty awesome. Just see this cycle of these students, to help really, boost those numbers and just to keep things rolling for us and stuff would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, we're just getting to the point now where my first student that went through the entire program is on the list for Sioux City now.
oh wow.
And so we'll see. I've got three of them working.
I was gonna say, there's another one that's on.
Well,
there,
there's
so
another
too
one.
bad.
I didn't get to have him in class
Yeah,
per se,
but,
but
yeah.
yeah, I've got 3 that have been hired on the state side at the 185th, and 1 on the military side right now there. So it's fun to see them progressing. We're up to about 20 kids on different departments here, so
that's really cool.
it's nice.
A lot of departments are struggling for recruiting and numbers and applicants. So this is fresh breath of air. For that.
Well,
So
and
that's awesome.
I'm impressed though. Even our local departments, how many of our local departments that the younger guys are coming through and coming through it and want to get their degrees and stuff. Because we've had a handful of Sergeant Bluff kids out there. There's been a few North Sioux kids that are actually, and again, ones that have been either on the list now or have gotten hired. Same thing with North Sioux. And even actually the schools up north is, we've had Sioux Center and Orange City, some of those kids coming down and stuff, but we do see a lot of the local ones continuing on. So it's kind of cool. That's Sergeant Bluff. I think as far as, when we get into more on the department side of it and stuff, I think the opportunities are there for the kids. The communities, we have a growing community down there. It's younger and stuff. So, you've got those, the Explorer program with the high school helps a ton, and helps feed. That's a feeder route for you I think when you look at volunteer departments in whole, there are some, I think you guys are in a fortunate spot with the Explorer program that you're not having the problem of having to find people to get on the department. You guys seem to be able to keep your numbers up versus some smaller rural departments are kind of struggling. It's the tail of the volunteers.
You're getting like some
now,
mature people too.
Yeah.
To whatever degree that might look like differently for people, but they're the people that already want to help their community or want to do something physical or just to give back a little bit, something like that. And it's just nice, like he said, for recruitment aspect. Like volunteers are coming way hard to find now too, not just like career people. It's down everywhere.
It's a lot of help from around the area. I know that I've brought students regularly here to the training center, and people will step up and add in and help. And I walked in today and I see Girls Inc. here, and trying to inspire some of that. And fortunately, we're seeing a little bit more within the school district in our programs of younger ladies stepping up. We've got another one going to Des Moines this summer for a week to the Iowa Hero Academy. It's put on by Des Moines PD and Fire, and so that'll be one each of the last 2 years that's went there that are very interested. And one's looking military, and the other one is liking the fire but really wants the EMS, and I know that's going to be music to Jim Hayden's ears.
Yeah. So talk about the high school program then with Sergeant Bluff and kind of what they can do and their options, and then moving forward once maybe they hit 18, going forward, what usually happens after that?
So we have it where students can get on at age 16. They've got to be 16. Insurance is good with that. It's a lot of from the truck back. We're not going to let them go into a burning building on a first day. Now, if there's some overhaul going on and there's some things that, it's safe, and we find a seasoned person to send them and let them walk around and see some things with, hey, we can do that. And there's some restrictions. We can't put them up in the aerial. We can't let them drive. But they're at the point where, most of our calls are medical, just like most everybody's. They're really good at gaining information. They know where equipment's at. They know what it's called. They're all pretty strong. They're good at lifting and moving, which we all have to do. And it's a great extra set of hands to have around. And they're building that knowledge so that when they see this again, they're like, oh, I know what to do in this situation. And a lot of times we won't even have to ask. They'll know what's expected, and they just do that. They're pretty good at getting up at 2 a.m. too.
That's
which
good.
is nice.
Well, they're not getting up at 2. They're probably still.
Yeah, they might still be awake.
Up at 2 o'clock.
And a lot of the kids that we've had over the years are not kids that this is the only thing they do. They're the involved kids, and it may be from music and drama to athletics to student government to you name it. They're up for the challenge.
Yeah, there's a lot worse things they could be doing than spending their time at a fire station, eager and.
So how does that?
Maybe want to want to do a little more than what they're allowed, I'm sure.
They always want to do more.
Yeah.
Does that change then once, like, so they get on at 16 and they can do some things? Does that change once they're like 18 and can get their their EMT, actually get their EMT license, get certified through the state and take some things? I mean, are they allowed to, they get to leave class? They carry beep pager.
They
get
actually
to leave
do
class?
get to leave class at 16 even. We've got it in there. They can't leave if they're in a test, or if it's the end of second block and first part of third block is a test. They can't miss that. They're held to the same standard for extracurriculars. So, if they would be ineligible, which we've never had, thank goodness, then that happens. And then the ultimate trump card is the parent card.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And if, there's something going on, the parent says, hey, no, we have a meeting. We sit down with each kid as they get on with their parents and have those conversations so they know what's expected. Once they do turn 18 and graduate, because there's going to be kids that are 18 before they graduate, then some of the restrictions can come off.
Sure.
But that's right from our city. They want them to be graduated before those restrictions can start to come off. And we've been fortunate. There's a handful that are working for you right now. They got their EMT in high school. There was a group of 4 of them that went together, and there's days that we'll have an ambulance show up at the hospital and the average age is 18 or 19.
It's crazy.
I can believe that.
I can
And
believe it.
The ER staff's like,
Yeah.
who's in charge of you? No, we got it.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Well, that's why we always call them the EMS kids, or the kids on the EMS division, because I mean a lot of them are, we've got some people that are seasoned. Everybody gets seasoned pretty quick because of the run volume, but yeah, most of them it's like they're right out of paramedic school, right out of EMT school or whatever. So yeah, you're anywhere from that 18 to 22, and they're, I mean, pretty quick. Yeah, you've got 2 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, whatever, running the street. But you also got them with
ambulance with someone's life in the back.
Yeah, but I mean,
wild.
they're doing it. I mean, they get trained up in a hurry and they learn in a hurry too. With again, when you have the volume that we do, these kids. But yeah, it's weird when you're like, man, just imagine. I was trying to think what I was doing at 20 something. If I'd be, riding in the back with just a buddy going, just running code 3 with your hair on fire down the street.
It's
going,
wonderful.
We're
It's
just
a
gonna
wonderful
send
wild
it.
life.
Yeah. So
Yep.
yeah, it's kind of.
How many kids would you say have gone through the high school program and then still volunteer or still in the fire service today?
I would say the large majority of them are. I got to think back. We've had this program in place for about 10 years, and we've got a physician. We've got some that have went into law enforcement. We've got state trooper. We've got city police officers. We've got county officers. Got one that went to be a medic up in North Dakota.
Cool.
And then, like you said, I think there's probably at least 6 on Sioux City Fire Rescue in the fire
I think
division.
that sounds right.
And then we've got others that have went ER nurses, trauma nurses, some are in surgery. And so a lot of allied fields, and we've kept a lot as they've gone through this. And we wouldn't have a viable department without it right now. We're nowhere near your call volume, but for the call volume we have, we wouldn't have a department.
Sure.
No. That was my next question. How important has this been to keep it an operational fire department in Sergeant Bluff?
We would be in trouble. In fact, years ago, there's 2 major insurance carriers for cities, the League of Cities and EMC. And one of those was not going to allow high school programs and actually cut it out for a little bit. And we were on the other one. And I went to the council and the mayor and said, hey, you can't switch.
Please don't.
We're going to be in trouble if you do, and here's why. And we showed them some of the data on how many calls these kids make and the time they put in and then the retention of them. And they said, no, that's important enough. And thankfully, the other entity is back to allowing it. But
I know Lamar's was on the other one that got cut out. Thankfully, after I was gone, but selfishly after I was gone. But they wouldn't hold insurance for kids. Obviously, I understand that aspect too. But
Right,
it
but
helps out the community
well, that's
so
just it.
much.
It's like a body is a body at some point.
Yeah.
Because what's
Especially
the
if it's
difference?
An
It's
eager,
like
smart person that wants to
yeah,
do it.
and they're still trained. They're still doing and it's if the ambulance gets there. I mean, isn't that it's at some point better than it's not coming?
Yeah.
And
money, man.
Yeah.
the driving aspect is an easy one to say, hey, we don't need a 16, 17-year-old kid driving an emergency vehicle.
We don't need some 40-year-olds driving an emergency vehicle, but
That's how Phil got promoted.
What?
oh my gosh.
No,
Young
go
Ben
ahead.
with the zingers, who's not driving or anything.
So
right now.
do we want to? So we kind of got a good history. So let's talk about, I think, because we've kind of covered a career academy pretty good and stuff, and let's kind of, because we wanted, Anthony was, or Chief Gaul. Do you want Chief Gaul or Anthony? I'm
either
just
one's
call you
fine.
Anthony because I'm
Anthony's
calling you
fine.
Anthony for years. So
Yeah, that's fine.
we wanted for this show, we've had, we've always kind of had full-time people or different. So, bringing you on, it brings a different perspective and stuff. Because, I mean, we've had guys that are here that maybe started on a volunteer basis or were on smaller departments, came and stuff. But you're one that, being a chief of the volunteer department, and then that's your world, basically. You're not, you haven't had the career side of things and I like to stay, it's a career versus volunteer, not, paid professional versus volunteer, because we're all professionals, right? We're all professionals. So it's, a career versus volunteer. So having that different perspective as far as, just your guys' mindset. I will say, like, I do notice the Sergeant Bluff, especially, the kids, but everybody on that Sergeant Bluff, everybody wears Sergeant Bluff Fire. If you're on the department, they're wearing the T-shirts or they're wearing the hats, like, all the time. Everybody on the department, even the young kids hang out together. When you see them, that if they're on the department together, they're always in groups. Like, even like you say, we got the, Corey and Tanner. I mean, they're still palling around together and stuff.
Levi,
when they started,
Corey,
But I mean,
They had,
but even the.
When Corey was in high school, he was a pretty good kicker for
Oh,
the football team.
Dude, he was an amazing kicker.
And,
I tell him all the time, like, they know nobody believes me. I'm like, no, dude, have Corey pull up his huddle reel for you. Hey, dude, that kid, he could kick that. Oh,
And the other-
unbelievable.
the other
Don't let
kids-
this go to your head, Corey.
Yeah, please don't.
You're not that
Well,
great. Just
there'd be a backboard on standby at the football games, of course, for everything, and they'd put Finkel on it.
Yeah.
That was his nickname, and they'd
Yeah.
be holding it up as he's running into the field.
Yeah.
So I mean, they enjoy
Yeah.
looking out
because
for
he
each
dressed
other.
like a woman in his free time.
Well, I'm not.
Is that why? Not that there's anything wrong with that. Just
But yeah, they have a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun messing with each other, razzing each other. But then they, when it comes to an event, they go and support each other. And now we're getting some kids that are on that are from East, and they're on. And the East and Sergeant Bluff kids figured out, you know what?
We're not.
You're actually all right.
That's kind of funny, just because we have the same school colors than me. So, but let's talk about kind of like your start with Sergeant Bluff, and I guess kind of your career and how that moving up, I guess, through the ranks and stuff, and then at what point did you take over chief? Is that a quote unquote promoted? Is that an applied for position? Is that voted on? I mean, how does one become chief, I guess, for Sergeant
Sometimes
Bluff,
it's not showing up at the right meeting. But no, I started in 1991. Started looking at it during my senior year. Back then it wasn't EMR, it was first responder.
Yep.
And I was in class up at Western Iowa Tech in the spring. The Sioux City police chief at the time was in that class, and a few from North Sioux were in there, and we went through and got that done. And right after high school, I think June, July, I got on in Sergeant Bluff then, so I'll be starting year 33 here.
Wow.
And back then Sergeant Bluff maybe ran 150 calls, and that might be pushing it. That might be a little
because you're talking even population. Well, you're talking, let's see, everything north of basically First Street there, because I mean, in a little bit, I mean, because Topaz area, that part
that was in the 80s.
Yep. And then you had south of Warrior Road was like right when I moved down, most of that got
That was all
built, and that was
cornfield.
like that was in 2000, of course. Coffee farm in Kingston and everything. I mean, as far as population now, we've grown so much, but back then, your run volume, but the town itself was much smaller,
it was probably 3,000-4,000 people smaller at a minimum.
Yep.
So I was on during college. I was on in Vermilion during college. Theirs was a little part-time. You get paid to be doing the ambulance calls up there, and you get some experience, which was really nice. At that time, they didn't allow high school kids on the fire department, but I was there so much they let me tag along with them, and got to go on some fires, and still talk to those guys very frequently. And it progressed. At that time, fire training was harder to come by. The push wasn't there as much, and so it took a few years before Firefighter 1 really came through. And so more of my time at the beginning was EMS. You know, I went through and got my EMT and then my intermediate. And back then, I don't think anybody in this room is old enough other than me. They had an emergency rescue technician, which was an endorsement on your EMT certification. So it was kind of a basic rescue class where you had to do from rappelling to vehicle to a few other things.
Wow.
And I think all of our rope training was at the old Sioux City Tower, not too far from
the
here.
18th Street Tower.
Yeah, that's where we learned to rappel and do that. So enjoyed that and became an officer on the EMS side of things in Sergeant Bluff in 94. And then in 95 kind of took over the EMS portion in Sergeant Bluff of helping line up the training and the ordering and all that kind of stuff, and did that for quite a while. Still did all the fire stuff, but on the fire side of things was the assistant chief for about 3 years, and that was back in 2005, and then 2009 till current I've been fire chief.
So who like, I guess with you guys, you said your dad, you know, he was involved in the city as far as that stuff, but not necessarily the department. So where did that drive come? Because so not only you but your brother and your sister are all, you know, spent, whether it's on EMS or fire, have been all. So where did the drive for the siblings, I guess, to come on the department?
Yeah, Corey Ayers, I'll give him credit for getting me on. We worked at Hy-Vee together in high school, and I'd see what they'd get to do, and I'd talk to his dad a little bit because they had a little more formalized in Lawton, and kids would leave with Ken Ayers. He was one of the teachers there. They'd leave, they'd go on calls, and I was like, hey, that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what got me interested and started asking. Bob Bartling was a longtime Sergeant Bluff member, ended up working at the Red Cross after that. He's the one that helped me to get on, because at that time there really wasn't that young crowd. There was definitely not any high school kids.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know about this kid, and probably had reason to be. You know, high school we're all a little higher strung than.
Yeah.
But he's one that probably mentored me the most and helped me to get involved and helped me be where I am today as far as Sergeant Bluff members. And then you get into that and give opportunities. You know, it was me asking, hey, what's this state fire school thing? Can I go? And yeah, okay, you can go. And that's when Iowa had winter and summer. And I went in the winter, and of course I had buddies that were in Ames, so I knew them, and I could go see them and go to class. And all of a sudden you start to network, and you're like, wow, there's a lot more out here than in our little area of the world. And whether it be from training to equipment, and things just make sense, and you start to know those people. And I never quit going to state fire school after that until the last few years, where it's been off and on a little bit. But you find people, and the relationships you get with those people, I think, are more important than anything else. And I just looked down on what's the Iowa City Fire Department teaching, because they'd send people out to FDIC. They'd come back with the latest, the greatest, hey, this is why this makes sense. And eventually, after about 3 or 4 years, their training officer came to me and said, hey, instead of just come take it, why don't you come and teach with us? And so I got to start teaching at schools with them. And that's when you really have to know your stuff. And that became fun. I learned a lot. I got to go to Iowa City when their new burn building was going to get put in service. So I got to be in on the first burn there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so that was a lot of fun. And it's just a whole new world when you're interacting with different people.
Awesome.
I think in 2009, I took my first forcible entry class down at the state school under you.
Yeah,
You were
we
the first
had
class
fun.
I took
Chris Buckman and I.
when I was 16. Yep.
Nice. Yeah. Well, and training equipment wise and stuff, like, you know, I think, and that's where you could kind of talk about the improvements and stuff you've done, because I notice, you know, now and living down there and stuff, and just over the years seeing the improvement. Like, I mean, your equipment is, you know, fantastic. And even for a department your size or community that size, you know, with the ladder truck, it's kind of a cool story with the ladder truck and where that came from and stuff. But but your training we've done with WIT and been down there. I tell you what, your search maze in the back, that back building, that's the coolest. Like, if you guys haven't seen it, like, this thing is I can't even. It is so cool. Like, I mean,
That
you
is
really,
a Rick Wilson original.
Oh man, it is amazing to like you crawling through this thing and then all of a sudden, and I mean crawling and crawling up, down, all around, and all of a sudden you stand up and you're in like a full size bedroom with like furniture, and you're like, how did I even get here? Like, and you crawl back. It's very well thought out and put together. But your props that you have in the back, the training field itself. I mean, you guys for a department for that size, I mean, there's some really cool stuff that you guys have, which is awesome. And it looks like you guys, I know, and too on the social media side on Sergeant Bluff Fire, you guys are doing, a lot of training. I mean, there's always, seems like you guys are doing something, So I mean, it's cool.
Yeah, that you try and bring in things that you have to do. Of course, I mean, there's skills that just need to be good at, and you guys do this day in and day out. We don't get as frequent of opportunity as you do to do that, and so you got to get back to the basics. But my goal is to bring in the other side also. We just hosted a 2-day National Fire Academy class, and things started to really click to the people that took that. And we had people from Vermilion come down even, and we've been sending people out to the National Fire Academy for the longest time. I had went out there on the EMI side. The state had sent me out for a school emergency one, and then I went back, and I've been out 5-6 times, and I'm like, we got to get more people out there. And once you see that and you get engaged with it and you meet these people from all over the country, you just have a bigger network. And so we've got about 10 people that have now been out the National Fire Academy, and we've got more going. In fact, we've had 3 high school students that have gotten to go to the National Fire Academy.
That's pretty awesome.
And I think that's what made my son's mind up, amongst other things. But he sat with the chief of safety from the Chicago Fire Department for a week.
Yeah,
that was his partner.
That'll probably do it.
That's
I'm
pretty
like,
awesome.
Yeah.
They gave him grief for the first half an hour for being younger, and then like,
Yeah.
no, this is really cool. Tell us more.
Yeah.
And another one's in emergency management right now, and I get to take my youngest son with me in August.
Oh,
And
cool.
He's going out and gonna spend the week out there taking class.
Are we gonna see him out at WIT eventually too? Because we had Carson, so.
Yep, that's the plan.
Yeah.
Is he's a little more interested in the law enforcement side, but he's planning on getting that fire diploma as well right now.
Good for him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, you bring those in, and it's been nice to interact with the neighboring departments, the North Sioux, South Sioux, Sioux City, the 185th, to train and see how everybody works.
Yep.
Because I'm not one that's afraid to call for help if we need it.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
shift gears that way and talk about operationally how Sergeant Bluff runs. So now you're the chief, which I assume you're in charge of a lot of administration, but you're also in charge of command when you're present for calls as well, which probably a different. We don't see Chief Everett on too many calls.
Yeah.
We have our operational.
Seems like
ACs.
I have too many times now. So it's usually when Captain Johnson's in the car.
Oh,
we have
yeah,
that
well,
one.
so big, yeah.
That's usually when Chief moseys onto the scene. And,
Yeah.
You come on thinking Chief never shows up to call. Well, I've seen him on a handful now
a
where
couple
I'm like,
times.
Yeah.
we're doing something wrong here.
when it's half a city block. Right?
Captain Chaos strikes again.
Yeah,
Yep.
100%.
So my question for you is, obviously you can't make every call. You can't be. How do you delegate with your staff to make sure that there's always that one person on every call that can at least be in command with and have a sense of control and things like that?
Yeah. So we have we have an assistant chief and a captain and 3 lieutenants, and so what I've asked of them, and they've stepped right up, is when we bring in, like this last one, decision making for initial company ops.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them took that, and they're getting that. They're understanding the terminology, and then we have to use it on the very small stuff.
Sure.
Otherwise, you're never going to use
You're
it on
not
the
gonna
big
use it,
stuff.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a chance we may not have someone that's got that title, so it's going to go to the senior trained person on that scene that they're going to have to step up, because we don't have that world where we're guaranteeing that X, Y, and Z are going to be there. I think we do a pretty good job of communicating who's around, and we've got an app that we can use so people can see who's available and who's not, and do a good job of talking through it. But it's you don't get those big calls very often, and so a lot of it's going to be the after action and talking through here's why, or putting a scenario up on a screen and saying, okay, if we get this, how would you handle this? Don't expect you to get it perfect. I'm not going to get it perfect.
Yeah.
and talk through and ask. And when you run into those things, I've called Chief Everett before and said, hey, what in the world?
Yeah.
Who can I talk to? Who's your person for this?
Yeah. What do you, so, and what's like your response, I guess, personnel wise and stuff? So like, if you guys got an EMS call, do you limit? Do you just say like, first 2 guys take the ambulance go? Do you take 4 people on it? What's kind of like your, same thing with the fire rigs. Does everybody on a fire call, is everybody certified to drive? I know there are some like, because there's some departments up in Minneapolis area in the suburbs out there and stuff that the way they operate is like, these X amount of people, these are the only drivers. So you'll have a rig full of personnel that can't leave because they don't have a driver. Waiting for a driver. So,
yeah. No, EMS wise, we don't have a set on call crew. Mm-hmm. It's what they would consider mass call, and every once in a while we do have the ability. The city has given us the ability. We modeled it off of Lamar's, where we can have a stipend for someone that wants to work a shift at the station. So they can come down and say, I'm going to be here for a day shift or a night shift. And they put themselves on the app as, hey, I'm at station 1 from this time, and we know they're guaranteed that. They'll have a truck checking duty, they'll have a house duty to get done, they'll have anything that my assistant chief or I say, oh, we got to get this done, and we'll put that on their task list. So they're guaranteed to go, but otherwise, call comes out, let's just say for a chest pain, people are dialing in, and we can see who's coming. We don't want to have 12 people in an ambulance.
Right.
We've got a command car that can be like a chase car. They don't need to go with their lights and sirens on. They can go out to help with the scene. I would say our average for an ambulance is 3 to 4 people. Okay. And those are not all EMTs. We've got some, we can drive. We might have a high school student that's going along to help.
Yeah.
And a couple people in the back to take care of the patient. And sometimes it's as little as 2 people. You might have just a driver and you've got your EMT or your medic in the back.
Yeah.
I wish I could say it's guaranteed to be this. It's not. Sure. That's not the world I live in.
For your ALS, if you need an ALS intercept and stuff because you don't have a medic with you, do you guys call EOC or would you call Sioux City?
EOC is on automatic dispatch with pretty much everybody in the county other than Sioux City. Mm-hmm. And so, we get there and assess and we can cancel them. Mutual aid wise, we've called Sioux City. We had 3 trauma alerts.
That was just recently here.
Very recently, and Sioux City sent an ambulance down that took one of them, and we had both of our rigs out to take the other 2 because that's what was needed.
Yeah. Well, and that area down by the exit down by 141 and interstate, that's it's kind of a mess as far as whose is it kind of thing anyway. So sometimes you get dispatched, it's actually might have been ours, but we don't even know about it.
Yeah.
And you guys are on it, and then all of a sudden you're calling. We're like, oh wait, why weren't we dispatched? Well, it's there's a line that gets drawn someplace. Same thing on 75 going down south and stuff. That line gets drawn somewhere.
Where the person's GPS phone call pings off of.
Yeah. So it works well. We like everybody else have times when you have more people and when you have less people, and we've taken some for other departments. We had training the other night, and we had a neighboring department said, hey, we know we're not going to have enough staff, and we were out the door in 20 seconds because we had people there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, it's like my neighbor's garage fire was the same kind of thing where you guys just finished training, so you had a ton of people there already. So that worked out really good that night.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's on the EMS deal. The fire side, you asked, our general parameters are if you're going to drive a truck, one, you've got to gone through some training, and we'll do the NFPA driving course. We got to make sure you can do that, and then you got to be able to operate that truck.
Yeah,
sure.
We don't want you to get it there and go,
I drove here.
I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. So what's first rig out, second rig out? Do you guys go by that, or is it like, oh, I feel like driving this one today, so I'm going to take this one?
We have our engine 3 is our primary engine, and that for most things is the first rig out on a fire call or a rescue call even, because we do carry rescue equipment on there. And then it's dictated by what the scene is. If we're going out in the rural area, we've got an engine sitting right behind it that's got a dump on it. It's 2,000 gallons of water, so those will go out as a tandem, and you get 3,000 gallons of water sitting there right away. And we've got another 2,000 gallon tender to go out if it's in the city. Our lower lower height stuff or lower flow volume, we're probably going to take another engine. Our tower ladder, we don't have as many people that can operate that.
Okay.
You know, if we get something a little bigger and we need it, we'll call it out.
So, but that's not a normal. That's not like a first. It's not like an engine in the truck, kind of thing. No. Okay.
Nope. And we don't have a problem. You know, if we don't have the right personnel for that, we've had other people down before.
Yeah.
You know, we've got. Most of the time, Sioux City, it's been an engine we've asked for because we need manpower, we need water flowing, we need lines pulled.
Absolutely.
But North Sioux, when they come down a lot, you know, they run theirs a little differently. They had that Quint that was kind of a first out.
Yeah.
And now they've got their nice new tower ladder. So and we try and train with them, and they'll come with people that can operate that. And, you know, they have their own water source. They have their own pump on it, which makes it nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit of the ladder truck. You guys tell us a little bit about the ladder truck, where it came, because it's kind of a unique truck, you know.
Yeah, our city really liked the ISO rating progress we had made, and it's not that we have these massively tall buildings, but we have well more than the
what
number.
What is Sergeant Bluff's ISO right now?
We're 2.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
very good
for a volunteer department to be a 2.
Yeah,
that's because we weren't. It wasn't that long ago, Sioux City. We were a 2 until our last time ISO. Well, the last time we kept our 1, but the time before that,
you were the first one in the state.
Yeah, that made it. And so we haven't had an ISO 1 for very long. So again, for volunteer departments to be an ISO 2, I think most of them are, closer to 10 than they are to 2. So I mean, that's awesome that you guys are there.
And it was based on the fire flow. If you get X number of buildings over a certain fire flow, you need a ladder.
Yeah.
And it was important enough for them. And so we looked around, and Oak Park, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago is where it came from. And we had to be very careful when we purchased one because of our garage door height. And it wasn't something we could add height to because of the brick and everything. So we had to get a pretty low profile. Well, the one in Oak Park came out, turned left, and went underneath the L. So it had to be a pretty low profile. Yeah. And that's they had traded that in, and we did well getting it, and they refurbed some of it for us, and it wasn't here too long. And I know later on you were going to ask about calls, and we'll talk about it. Its maiden voyage for us was probably the largest fire I've been on.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I'm trying. Yeah, because I remember that's that one down.
We'll
talk to you. Yep.
But it's fun because those the people that were on that truck company, they still follow along. They follow us and see when that truck's out, and they'll comment once in a while.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, because it's a different look. If you guys haven't seen that low profile aerial, it's a different look because ours are ginormous. Yeah, when you look at the profile in them, they sit high. They're big trucks. This thing with that low profile thing, I mean, it's squatty, and that's like that tire is almost sitting like right behind the driver in the officer's seat. It is just barely off the ground for the cab and everything. It looks kind of different.
And that bucket sits low, and you've got to be careful driving it.
Yep. Yeah, you would, because like I said, ours are just huge. But yeah, it's a cool truck though.
So what does Sergeant Bluff look like in terms of apparatuses and personnel?
So personnel, we'll kind of talk first. Right now we got 34 firefighters, and they can do fire and EMS.
Okay.
We have our own EMS division. We have some people that just want to do the EMS.
Absolutely.
We love it because that's so we have 9 people, and then we've got 5 high school students right now. One of which here in August will roll over to the quote-unquote regular side.
Okay.
Graduated but not 18 yet.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
And so we'll gain that, and we've got a couple more applicants coming in. So that's what we have for personnel, and that's bounced. I mean, not too long ago we had 42 people, but we've had some people move, some people retire.
Does the city limit how many people you can have?
Yeah, it does. It's not a hard, fast thing. I think if we said, hey, we need different, they would. We can have 43 on the fire side, 10 on the EMS, and 8 on the high school.
Okay.
And that's what's in there right now. And we're in that transition phase a little bit, that we're run by bylaws, and we have all that. And I talk to North Liberty a lot because we're where they were a handful of years ago. And they've transitioned through combination, and they're still combination, but they're more run off of policy like you guys are. And so we'll see where it goes over the next few years. So it's an interesting growing time.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happened up north with Lamar's, they
Exactly.
eventually had to transition over into the combination world, and that's just the way I think more of it's going to be going. Just
I agree.
call volume wise grows here, grows everywhere, grows
And-
down in Sergeant
And
Bluff.
people are busy. I mean,
Yeah,
A
because
lot
how
of
much?
employers don't like letting their employees leave anymore, which
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I can understand.
So, like,
Wait,
yeah,
it's
The baker
150
and the
times
meat
a
man
year.
running down the
Yeah.
street to the firehouse is not a big thing anymore.
No.
Well, and it was easier when there were 150 calls a year versus 600
Versus
a year.
Is
600.
that what,
They're
is that
like,
what you guys are?
We're
We're a
leaving
little under
again?
600,
Little
but
under.
we're pushing that.
Right.
We've jumped up about 30, 40 calls a year the last few years.
That's twice a day. You're asking potentially someone
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
drop what you're doing and
Yep,
go. So
absolutely.
between family, work, I bet that gets real old.
Well, and just in the city, the population just keeps growing. It's not slowing down.
No.
The one. I guess it's a catch-22 because the one benefit is a lot of the construction now is new construction. So
It is.
but the downside of that is the dangers of new construction homes and everything like that as far as for the fire side. But new construction, younger people and stuff, not necessarily health problems, but now you got the big, you still got the two kind of nursing or rehab facilities. The big new one, you got those apartments. I can't imagine like if you guys if it's anything like the apartments that we have with burnt food calls and fire alarms and stuff like that going. And but then you also have behind Mid States, that's a older community there and stuff, and then you still have the old part of town too. So I mean, the volume for you guys, it's not gonna go down. It's only
No.
gonna go up like we are, to the point that I mean, I don't know what the future, if you guys are doing projections and stuff and looking at like, okay, we're here now, and yeah, we get a stipend that we could staff, if we staff one person here or there or whatever. But at some point, what's the tipping point, or what's the bucket where like, okay, we have to be full-time now. We have to start staffing people all the time.
Fortunately, we've got a city council that's really willing to listen, and they've asked the questions even. And we've had some good conversations with them, and so we've been able to add some money to that staffing line item in our budget for this year, and kind of preparing them for, hey, we might have to do some part-time.
Yeah, for sure.
You look at, again, I look at North Liberty a lot. That's how they started. They started with some part-time, and then they rolled into a little full-time. Then they've added more. Same with Lamar's. They started with, a chief, and then they added an assistant chief, and now they've added multiple people because they've taken over the EMS for quite a few years now. And I see it moving in that direction. But
Yeah.
you were also asking about Apparatus and fleet. And,
Yes.
we're very fortunate there. We've got 3 engines, and then a tender. And that tender technically qualifies as an engine because it's got a large enough pump. But we can roll out the door with those 4 with what do we got? 6,000 gallons of water in those 4 apparatus, which
it's a
makes
good
it
start.
really nice if we need to. And we've got our tower ladder, and we've got a heavy rescue. We've got an air and light truck, so we can fill our own, and that we bought used. But the county has an air unit.
I was gonna say, does your guys' air and light truck, does that go out to the county?
It
a lot?
can.
Yeah.
It can. We had a couple fires where it was busy and we couldn't get it, and we're like, we got to have something. We can't.
Yep.
We can't just sit and go, oh, let's try and run things somewhere and find it.
Drive
Yeah.
guys back and
So it's out there. It's a good resource. I know that it's on South Sioux's list for resources now because that's something they don't have.
Right.
They'll call you guys a lot for suppression and everything, and they're
Yep.
like, ooh, we could call you for this, and that could be a
that,
role
yeah.
that could be filled.
Yeah.
And well, sure.
teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah. The USAR team here in Sioux City's got more resources now, but before that, we were the only game in town for trench.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so we've got a truck that's got that.
Yep.
And it's gone out, and we've had Sioux City come down, and we've had a couple of saves. Then we don't have a ton of wildland area, but we've got a brush truck and a couple Polaris Rangers that do a nice job for us there, and then our ambulances. So we're well equipped.
Yeah, and you got your district, but then you're also mutual aid and how many when
County
it comes to their wildfires. And
Yeah, and I ended up running a fire down in Hornick this last year
I believe it.
because there was a bunch of departments out
Yeah,
on an
that's-
initial fire
Crazy.
out in Billy Goat Country
Yeah.
that they were doing, and I went down and it was after school. I ran cooler water out and some stuff. Hey, you need anything? And then they got another fire that tripped in that took about a section, and so I ended up running that down there with, you get whiting coming in, you get resources you're
Oh,
not
yeah.
used to working with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That seems to be common in this area when it gets to the spring and fall. That
Oh,
if
yeah.
one department has a fire going, you can count on a few
Count
others
on
having
it.
fires going. And we talk about in our training that when we don't have much rural area in our district, but the volunteers, they know how to fight. They know how to fight grass fires.
I tell you what, I listen to Smithland. They know how to fight wildland fires.
Oh.
Yeah.
They've had guys that have been deployed on teams, and that's definitely their area. They know.
Yeah, yeah.
Between that and then just rural operations with drop tanks and things
Yeah.
like that, it's probably another area they could
It's
outperform us.
It's interesting. Is we've had Sioux City on a pretty big house fire with drop tanks, and you're unique with the fittings on your trucks.
Well, that's I think I was out there. It was like Whispering Creek. I was floating and we came from fives to, and we ended up. I think actually we were either the first or second engine on scene, because I think it might have been an engine or a tender that rolled first and the drop tank. But yeah, that was the thing. It was like, we needed adapters.
We don't
we
have
can't
hard
find the
suction.
adapter. We
We
can't
don't
this and
have-
and it was like, so we ended up being the draft engine with trying to figure everything out. So. Yeah, it was. It is interesting because we have bastard threads, and all of our hydrants are bastard threads, all the engines are bastard threads. Everybody else is national standard.
I can say I've worked on like the 2 departments in the country.
Yeah, they
now
use,
that have
use
bastard
bastard threads.
thread.
Yeah,
So-
so it's an adapter.
We've
for
learned
everything.
though, because we know if we're using all of our stuff and you have an engine come down, we're going to take the adapters off your truck.
Yep.
Because then it's national standard underneath to
Yeah,
connect hose to.
yeah, and that's what I think guys forget about that.
You
it's
can
like
just
we
take the
they
piping right off
just
the
to
side,
take it
the
right
elbows.
off. Yep.
And then we carry adapters for your hydrants if we're up in the area and we've got to do
Yeah.
stuff so we can do
Yeah,
that.
because it depends on which part, because over by Menards and those addresses over there, so it's actually the city limit is drawn someplace, but the hydrants aren't necessarily, so
yeah.
I mean, but
It
it's
goes
kind
every
of
other
like your
house
guys'
somewhere.
is like,
Absolutely.
it's your guys' call, even though it gets weird over there,
Yeah, those are some unique addresses on
Yeah.
Garrettson and Decatur and LaSalle and Fifth Avenue,
Yep.
all back in there.
Well,
It's-
and then even too, like on which side of the bypass, because on the east side of the bypass is like, well, that's Lawton now, becomes into play. And so again, you have to draw the line someplace, but at the same time, you're like, it makes things interesting and stuff when you get to.
What I will say is I think we're all fortunate with the departments around here, man. You get looking out some places and you're like, holy crap, But the training, the stuff you guys do, we know we don't really have to worry about it when we show up. It's just a matter of talking to each other for a little bit, and then all right, we can do this, no problem.
Yeah,
So
when
it's
I think of volunteer
been nice.
fire departments, Sergeant Bluff and North Sioux, two of those phenomenal departments for a volunteer
don't have to
service
worry
in
about it,
comparison to
yeah.
the area. So, been chief a long time. Some great advice I got when I was really young was that it doesn't matter if you're volunteer or paid, that the emergencies they show no bias to whatever department you're on. So any memorable calls that stick out with your tenure as Sergeant Bluff?
there's a lot. I mean, there's some serious and some kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And some teach you a lot. It goes from, I won't get into it too much to describe it, but we were called to a fire alarm one time that became the funniest call I think I've ever been on, because as I get there, I'm met at the door by 2 very young individuals, and as you look in, you see the tequila bottle, you see the lime, you see the salt out, and it being people were out of town and they had a large party, and there was enough recreational smoke in the basement that they set off the smoke detectors.
Yeah.
So they were. I said, "What am I going to see if I go down there?" We don't know. So I mean, you get funny ones like that too. There's a lot of the memorable ones. There's some fire, but a lot of them are the rescue ones.
Yeah.
Some car accidents that. I still have the newspaper article on one where it was drunk driving, but it was the worst injuries I'd ever seen in my life, to grain bin rescues where we've successfully pulled people out, and they weren't even in our community. We got called to do them in Hornick and in Danbury. I mean, that's a drive
That's
to
a
Danbury.
drive for
Danbury's a
anyone,
little
yeah.
bit, yeah.
Holy cow.
And the first one I was in the bin, the second one I ran it, and those people are walking around today, and I remember calling our instructors saying, "Hey, you're never going to guess what happened."
Yeah.
And they, you imagine how they feel, because they're the ones that taught us all how to do it. And then I
absolutely.
call back a second time, and they're like,
Holy crap.
so, those are the days that you go, this is why we do this, and why the training needs to come in. And, the last trench rescue we had, it involved one of the more unique ones I had ever seen, because you had the backhoe teetering over, like the outriggers weren't really holding it where it needed to.
Yeah.
and it was about 10 foot down, and his head was showing, and he was back because they were digging underneath where the excavation was going. And that's where those relationships come in. And I made one quick call to Stockton Towing, and they had a wrecker and a heavy down there both, and we used them both. And I looked at it and I went, we've got limited personnel here. And I called Sioux City, and they sent 2 companies down, and we used everybody working that day. And we even had we were worried about hypothermia. We called over, not to the fire department at the base even, but to operations, and they brought one of their ground heaters over.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
They had colonels all of a sudden showing up with this, and the city bringing a vac over, and you have public safety and other agencies working together, and that guy's out walking today. He's alive because of the training of a lot of different people, and a lot of people working together. So you go from those to I was fortunate enough to be on the USAR team here for quite a few years. And, those deployments, you're going over Cedar Rapids when they had the flooding, and you talked about that's where I learned a ton of forcible entry, because we had 5,000 structures we had to search.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And every one of them, the doors were warped, and the jams, and couches floated in the house because the water was 10 foot up in them. And so you were forcing door after door after door, and trying to get these people back to some semblance of normalcy.
Yeah.
And then we had the floods here.
Yep.
So I got to be on a different side of it, sitting down in the emergency operations center, and that's not what people see all the time. They don't see what goes on in that little room.
Yeah.
And so it pays dividends down the road, like when we had Ragbri last summer. Having to make an IEP for that, and do that and set it up.
Because they were talking 25,000 people for when I came to town, and that's a small. That's just. I mean, really, that's way more than the population of the town itself.
5 times the size of our town, and it went well. I'm happy to say that Sioux City has it this year.
Yeah. And they're expecting twice that number for this year's stuff, so it's going to be crazy busy. This town can support a little bit, because that was where Sergeant Bluff. It's if you think about that, Ragbri, not just the emergency operations side of it, which you have that, but it's like, where do you put all the people?
I know.
It was like every spare chunk of grass and everything else. I think they did a good job with getting up campsites and everything else and stuff. I was waiting for somebody to take like tent spikes and put it into the turf on the football field and start camping on there.
Yeah, I think Coach was watching that pretty close.
They were camping on that one, but for you guys, that's a logistical thing because you had how many different campsites all over, and then being able to just get around town, because I know there was roads that were closed, there was traffic and stuff, because even just living there and just trying to, if you want to go anywhere and do stuff, it's easier just to walk at some point, and so that
was part of the fun of, you ask about training and things, and I had just gotten back a month before that from the National Fire Academy for command and control, and my instructor was the chief of the Pittsburgh Fire Department.
Oh yeah.
He had just done the G20 summit not too long before that, so we're planning stuff, and I've got his cell phone number. I'm like, hey, he's like, oh yeah, do this instead of this and call it this. And, it made it nice, because we had 10 different departments come in with help, and we divided it up, and that part went really, really well. And it's been fun over my career. I've gotten to work with Secret Service a couple of times.
Yeah, nice.
President's coming to town.
President's coming in, and you get sit and take pictures with Air Force One as it lands.
So
and
cool.
They invited us out one day to the 185th Fire Department, where they had the presidential limo. They had, they're unpacking guns. You're like, oh. They're like, yeah, that's why when we say don't open the doors, don't open the doors. Yeah. But we couldn't get in the limo, but they'd open it up, and I got to bring my kids out, and they got to see this.
Cool. Oh, that's so cool.
So that's pretty memorable for that. And then we just kind of talked a little bit about the maiden voyage for our tower ladder. And that was the biggest, probably scariest fire I've ever been on, because it wasn't our fire. It was Salix's fire.
Yep.
But they had a member that was getting married that day, and they had called and said, hey, we need you guys to cover. Yep. They did a great job setting it up.
Yeah.
And we got out there, and they had 2 people there and an engine, and I remember I walked up to him and said, hey, what do you need? You to be in charge. I don't do this. That was the direct quote.
Yeah.
And it was in an area that's not hydranted. It's a chemical plant. and started doing 360, and all of a sudden power lines came down on things, and it had our first explosion. And on the way back, we had the second big explosion, and we hit the deck, and it was within 2 minutes of being there, it was just erupted.
Yeah. Wow.
And, you know, as a hazmat guy, Phil, you'll appreciate, you know, there were pallets of potassium and pallets of sodium on the other side of the wall.
Perfect.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and for the
Water, baby.
yeah, reacts violently
Wait a
with
minute.
water.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute.
And so that was the tower ladder got up, and we were flowing about 900 gallons a minute off of drop tanks, and then the airport brought a crash truck out, and we set up another draft tank operation there, and they were flowing one of their crash trucks off of drop tanks, and it got to be a huge loop, and the people that drove those apparatus and did it, and it ran the water supply,
The shuttle.
man, they were amazing.
God.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they had their chemist from their plant that came down. Oh boy. I grabbed a member from another department that was a chemistry teacher, and I said,
Yeah.
you need to interpret for me.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah.
I mean,
Speak
because
English.
it made sense to
Yeah.
him, and then
Right.
he said, here's what it really
Okay, now we'll
means.
just simplify this a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it shows the benefit of working together, and
Yeah.
you know, you hear about people that have those degrees. I think you've got one that has a chemistry degree that's on your department right now, because he was helping some of my students when they were out, and they're invaluable.
Yeah.
It's that varied background that you bring in.
Well, and it's interesting, like some people you don't realize have these things and stuff, and you're teaching chemistry, you're teaching hazmat and stuff, and I'm like, wait a minute, you have a degree, you went to school for chemistry, like you have a degree in this stuff, and like, why am I teaching it? Like, you teach this, and you know, teach us something. I don't want to, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't know. I mean, it's those skills that somebody brings in from elsewhere. We had a earth scraper jackknifed one day, and hydraulic tools will not cut that apart. It wouldn't at the time. I mean, this is a few years ago.
Yeah.
And luckily, one of the people had done metal work, and we commandeered a torch set, and that's how we had to cut this out.
Wow.
Perfect.
And as we're talking about all this stuff, for us, it's our job. This is what it's our paycheck, it's our benefits, it's our health care, and it's our responsibility to provide the level of knowledge and training for the people we serve. For everyone else, this is volunteers. This is time away from their families. This is time away from their jobs. They're not being financially compensated to the level they probably should be. And I think that's what makes everything so special about the fire service, especially on the volunteer side, is they're doing it because they love it, and that's why they do it.
They do, and it's the people around. I mean, when you need something, there's a group of people that are generally there to step up and help you, whether it's, hey, I bought a new house and I'm moving, to my roof, I got to tear off all my shingles and I do this. It might have nothing to do with the fire service. It might be your kid's grad party that you're setting up for, and all of a sudden 8 other people show up to help you set everything up. It might just be you're having a crappy day. I mean, you guys have that sitting around the kitchen table sometimes, that you've probably solved a lot of the world's problems.
That's all we do. That's all we do here too.
So it makes it fun, and it, you know, I had a family member that had pretty serious medical problem, and we ended up at University of Iowa hospitals. The training officer from the Iowa City Fire Department showed up. Here's the key to my house. Here's where you're staying.
Yeah.
I mean, that you don't find that in other
I don't think
career
so, no.
fields, professions. I don't think. Maybe some here and there,
Without knowing them, though, you know.
Yeah.
They just hear about, oh, that's another brother or sister.
so that
Here you
you know
go.
that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
And you know, it's people are a phone call away. Your poor dad, he gets a lot of phone calls from me.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, what in the heck does this mean?
He still answers Chief when I call. Chief Shipper.
Yep.
Like, hey, Dad, you want to help me with something? Nah.
Yeah. You find those resources though, and they're just invaluable.
Well, just doing like a quick search and stuff for people to understand, like when you talk about volunteer versus career department stuff, like the majority, not just any, I mean, in the country, the majority are volunteer. Like 60, on a quick search, like 65% of firefighters in the country are volunteer firefighters, and in the state of Iowa alone, only 3.3%. And that's right, direct from the U.S. Fire Administration. Just over 3% are career. So that means 97% of firefighters in Iowa are volunteer firefighters. So the vast majority, you know, between volunteer or paid on call kind of thing. So So yeah, you guys, you know, that demographic. I mean, that compromises, the majority. So you know, I mean, it's an invaluable resource because municipalities, you know, you can't afford to always have a full-time department, or the city's not big enough, and there's a lot of territory that has to get covered, and a lot of population that needs somebody to come, you know, in the middle of the night, or when there's a car accident, or you know, grandma's having a heart attack or whatever. So I mean, it's you know, I mean,
I don't think it's the fact that they don't want to have somebody full-time there. It's that there's just not
can't.
money.
Nope.
No,
There's no way to make that financially work.
I think people don't realize that. Sometimes they either see the stuff on TV and think everybody does it and it's a job and they're getting paid to do it, or it's the other side. So you have the conversation with people, they don't realize that you get paid to do it, that it is your job. But like I said, that's, I mean, and I didn't even know that statistic for Iowa, that it's that the career side is very small.
Yeah, it's interesting. We put a time clock in Sergeant Bluff years ago, and it's not for getting paid or anything, and people forget to punch in when they're at the station. And you don't get a punch in if you're coming to a call, but if you're there for training, a meeting, you're hanging out. I don't care if you're watching TV. Insurance-wise, it counts as that station is staffed. Well, it doesn't count, you know, 2,080 hours or whatever it is for full-time. That's not what they consider a full-time. It's 24/7, 365 equals one firefighter in ISO's eyes.
Yeah,
Sure.
So, you know, even with what we're doing, we're lucky to get to 1.3, 1.5 maybe, but it makes a difference.
Sure.
Where, I don't know what your staffing is every day at minimum, but you're having that many.
yeah,
That it makes a huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
And your response times are
yep,
impressive.
yeah.
Is there any pay per response or pay for trainings with Sergeant Bluff?
We don't pay you to go to it, but we'll pay for the trainings. You know,
Okay.
we'll send you, but it's not, hey, if you go take this, we'll give you $200 for doing it or anything like that.
So
But-
what about calls? Are you guys total 100% volunteer, or is there a paid on call?
Well, it's kind of in that transition thing. There's, in the bylaws, there's so much per person per hour for going on the calls. Right now, we just put that into a fund at the station, and whether it buys dinners, it buys different things.
Something.
But we're now adding those stipends. So if I've got 3 people today working 9-hour shifts, at the end of the month, you know, I'll submit that to the city,
Yeah,
and then they'll earn money
yeah, a couple bucks.
themselves.
Good.
Yeah,
And
Good
it's, you know,
Oh, those high school kids, it's a little gas money.
well, yeah, and unfortunately the high school kids can't earn it. They gotta
Oh, they
get to
can't.
be
Okay.
they gotta be
Yeah.
the full member to earn it.
Gotcha.
yeah, because
But
Or
18-year-olds
even
that are
18,
they can.
21-year-old
And
college
you know,
kids.
hopefully that's making some sort of headway back to you're away from your family, you're away from a job possibly. It's like, I could be working another job right now, but I'm choosing to volunteer for my community.
Well, and
well,
right
it
now,
keeps you excited, makes
a
you,
little
you know,
bit. You got to
'cause-
compensate people for
yeah,
that. anymore.
or and it gets some, like you said, a little bit of motivation. Like when I worked back home in Eveleth, and that was before I came down here, so 2000, 2001. I mean, the ambulance, so it was staffed 24/7 on the ambulance side, and you got paid, I think it was like $2 or $3 an hour. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot. And the people that put in the majority of the hours was like 18. It was us 18, 19, 20 years
Oh,
old.
yeah.
Like, and we were just, because you would just live there for a week, like solid, because you had, you know, because you're like, well, I'm getting paid, you know, and just. But the big money was always like in the non-emergency transfers, because then you
Oh,
get
yeah,
like,
baby.
it was like if you went to Virginia, it was 15. If you had to come in to go to Virginia, it was like $15. One go to Hibbing was like $30. But then the fire side, though, they were a paid on call fire side, and I can't remember if it was something like $7 an hour or something. I think is what they got if there was a fire. You know, it was a little bit different. And that's you know, that sometimes you throw a few bucks at people to help. You know, if it's a motivation to help get the bodies and help get the numbers. You know,
and these younger ones, it's a good part-time gig for them while they're going to school doing something. And you know, today I'm looking, I've got of the 3, 2 EMTs and a medic. 2 of them are firefighter 2, one's firefighter 1. All of their hazmat. I mean, they're
Squared away.
they could roll out the door and they
know,
could solve some problems.
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome.
Good deal. So if new members, Sergeant Bluff Fire Service in general, any advice you give to them?
You know, work hard, be nice to people. That's it. You know, you talk about integrity, doing the right thing when nobody's looking. Even you mentioned, you know, emergencies, they don't care who's coming. And, you know, people don't have a choice who's coming into their house. And we talk about this a little bit. you want to be that trusted person, and you are held to a higher standard. And we go over that. And the other big thing I can tell anybody, I don't care what career field it's in, is you got to build relationships, because you can't do everything, you can't know everything. You need to be able to reach out to people and say, hey, I need help. What can I do here? How can I make this better? And that's the biggest thing. It is a lot about who you know and how successful you can be, because they will help make you successful. Surround yourself with those people.
I'm sure especially if you're 18, 19 years old, teaching patience is important, to learn that you gotta take this career one day at a time. So you can only learn so much.
It's
so
tough
fast.
for 50-year-olds to know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then just to work as a team. Nothing gets done on a scene. Someone's got to be on the nozzle, but someone's got to pump, and someone's got to drive, and someone's got to be on the ambulance.
Yep.
Right. So just to work as a team, right? And
It's big to see that, and the more experience you get, I think the more you start to understand that.
Yeah.
And it might be easier for somebody to hear that from Devin than me. He's maybe closer in age to some of them. It might be easier for you, and you find those people that can help do that. It doesn't have to be somebody with a title.
Correct.
It's
Sure.
you have people that are just willing to help people learn, and that's part of the key to this. And you figure out who those people are.
Good deal.
So we got a few more things. I
Yeah.
think we can get into. I think we should maybe take a quick break and
That
stuff,
works.
refill and
My
stuff,
bladder says
because we
yeah,
still
we
got
should take a
you've got reserve deputy experience, you've got just substantial history, I think, in scouting.
Yep.
That you did a lot of stuff with, and just in general in the community. So maybe we take a quick break and come back.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
And we're back. All right, we'd stay a quick step away and stuff. We're gonna get back into it with Sergeant Bluff Fire Chief Anthony Gaul. So a couple things we're gonna teach on, and we're gonna touch on. We're gonna get into a little bit more stuff as far as like I said, your reserve deputy and stuff, and then just your involvement in the community, because I think people recognize you, they know you and stuff, just because you're a guy that's around, has been around for a while. But what are some things, if we get back to Sergeant Bluff just a little bit in the department, when you took over as chief in 09, you said it was about 09. So what have you done, I guess, to make an impact for the fire department as your tenure, the big changes like you've made, whether it's policies or tactics or equipment or implementing some kind of vision or mission statement kind of thing, and what are some of the things that you've done down there for your people?
Yeah, I don't know that I can take credit for anything solely, but one of my big focuses was that high school program and getting kids in, making them aware so that they can help the community and helps the department. So that's been something. I traveled around and looked. Denison had a pretty good program for
their
a long
chief
time.
up there. There's been guys have been commenting about the Denison fire chief, and he's a pretty squared away dude up there, I guess.
Yeah, and we'd talk to them. I mean, they had kids that even struggled in high school sometimes, and they'd have older members that would sit and help them with their homework. I mean, it was neat to hear the other things. Lamar's has had this for a long time. Lawton has had one, and so you ask questions about that. And as I've been out at the National Fire Academy, we've talked about it with people out there, and unfortunately they had to cancel the big high school I don't even remember what they called it, but it was going to be the week I was out there for NFA last summer, so I was going to get a chance to go talk to some of those people from around the country, and it got canceled for one reason or another. But you link up there. That's one. I think there's in a lot of departments also been the attitude that it's ours and we don't need anybody else to help us. And I think we've gotten that to go away. There's no way, even as big as Sioux City is, and the great people you have trained, you can't do it all by yourselves all the time.
Right.
No.
Yep.
And used to get, why are you calling them for help? We can do it. No, that's not the way this works. We're looking out for our community. We're looking out for our people, and trying to do the best job that we can. And those relationships are great. I think I can still remember the night we met with North Sioux City, because outside the state, that was different. And it was the night that that Byrne movie was at the Orpheum.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Sweet.
And North Sioux had people, and we had a few people we went out to eat afterward, and we talked about this. And it's been 8-10 years now of the night of their fire department awards dinner. We'll go up and we'll cover calls and run them for them.
Mm-hmm.
They'll come down. They run calls in Sergeant Bluff.
Yeah.
We'll do training together. We'll mutual aid each other, and those things are great. I can remember the one time we had to bring an engine up to Station 5, and we were in quarters at Station 5 because you guys were on pretty major fire with callbacks even.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. That was
Feed Energy.
Feed Energy, yeah.
And, that's not something that
No.
had ever been heard of.
Yep.
Chief Everett's actually who met us
Just
to let us in.
Yeah.
And, we've had a couple of responses with Sioux City. It was on the EMS side to start, but then up in the Riverside area with some brush fire stuff. And, those are great things to see happening that I don't think would have ever happened in the past.
Right. No.
For sure. No.
Yep. And I think that's just the change in the culture in not just Sioux City, but just the fire service in general. And I think this generation of just people that are coming up into these positions that have a different viewpoint and are going to more training and learning some things and getting outside perspectives from all of this, because you look back 40, 50 years ago and stuff, and that old school that old guard mentality of, like you said, we do it here and that's it, and we're not getting and people didn't go to outside trainings, and it was just what you got at your department, that's it. And now you're getting, all of a sudden people's eyes are open because they're getting all this stuff. And I think as things develop and get bigger and better and stuff, it's just going to get to be more and more that way. You look at what are things going to be like 10 years from now or 20 years from now, and the people that we're training that are going to come up,
Right. And I think that's the other big thing that we've done a really good job over the last years is bringing those other people in, getting that perspective from whether it be regional, state, or national people coming in to hear from them. And or sending people out, like I mentioned earlier, sending people out to National Fire Academy, having Rick Lasky come in for a couple of days, and
pretty cool,
and hearing from him and reviving some historical things that people really didn't know about. And I've been able to put that into my teaching even, and you talk about where did the Maltese Cross come from, and there's a lot of firefighters that don't have any idea where it came from or why it was there. And so it's fun to see why we do certain things and learn about those traditions of your department or the fire service in general.
Yep. Or like, why is it a Dalmatian? Why do we say catching a plug? Why do you say, just all those things that really all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that's really cool.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of people that helped you get into the department or on the department and stuff, but are there some people that through your career there and stuff that you consider like a mentor that really kind of put you on a path, or that you kind of go back to and lean on or talk to and ask questions? I mean, there's there are individuals that you could be like,
absolutely,
this is the dude that helped me out the most, kind of thing.
Absolutely, there are. And it, as you move through your career and people retire and aren't around as much, that changes. But my time in Vermilion, the fire chief up there, Doug Brunick, he was one I would talk to all the time, and I would ask questions of, and and Devin may not agree here because your parents are always not very smart, but his dad and I have had lots of conversations.
Yeah.
I lean on him a lot because he's had more experiences than most people have ever had in the fire service with his career and where it's taken him around.
Yeah.
Brian Plotz is the fire chief over in North Liberty. I will call him and ask questions because he's in a similar sized community, a very growing community. And, I mentioned earlier, Iowa City, I would talk to them a lot, from chiefs to captains and on down, of people that I would get to work with, train with, and understand. So those are all people that I kind of have on speed dial.
Yeah.
And if you need that, you ask. And now in teaching, it makes it even easier. There's quite a few in Sioux City Fire Rescue. When you need something, or hey, can you help with this? Because I know you're really good in this area.
Sure.
Ryan Collins is on speed dial for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But and my role in Sergeant Bluff's changing a little bit more. I'm doing more with code, more with planning of developments wanting to come in, and so you get to that, and it's a lot easier to call a Ryan Collins and ask questions than it is to get through the network of the state sometimes,
Right.
especially as they're changing, because now the fire marshal's office isn't going to have the inspections anymore.
Not anymore.
It's going to inspections and appeals, and you know, it's
Who knows how that's going to look?
Exactly.
So,
Right.
So it's a great thing, to do, and I've got some resources from the National Fire Academy. Usually there's one person from every class that you click with pretty well, and you know, they're in different regions of the country, from, like I said, the Pittsburgh fire chief who was an instructor, to I've got a guy down in Texas that's a fire chief that he makes his way up here once in a while, and fun to call and bounce ideas off of them. So it's those are kind of the go-tos for me.
Yeah. So what, I guess, then, you know, one of the last questions, supposed to wrap up your time with on the fire department and everything, but what's the future of Sergeant Bluff Fire? I mean, what's Sergeant Bluff Fire look like? How many, I mean, you know, how much longer does Anthony Gaul stay around Sergeant Bluff Fire, and what do we, you know, what's the next 10 or 20 years looking like for the department?
You know, as long as I'm enjoying it and wanting to continue to learn, I want to stay around. Now, what role I'm in over the time, I don't know. I might be the guy driving the truck and pumping the water and being pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
But, you know, right now I enjoy it. I enjoy helping the younger people, or the newer people. It doesn't have to be younger.
Sure.
That are wanting to get into this, learn. So I don't see myself in the near future not doing it. I enjoy it. You know, right now I'm fortunate that I've got some of my own kids doing it with me, and that makes it even more fun.
Yeah. Yep.
Now the department itself, you know, I wish I had a crystal ball to see where, but you know, we're preparing the city that it's going to have to change. There's just too much volume to always do business the same way.
Yeah.
And you look around our state at some different models that people have used, and around the area, and you don't know which one's going to be right.
No.
Someone's going to have to manage it, though, and I think that's probably where it's going to have to start. I mean, we might get through a couple more years and add some part-time and get the city to the point where they're financially ready to do this. But you don't want to throw it, say, oh, we're just going to hire these 3 people and they're going to do it, and then nobody else shows up.
Right.
We don't have that luxury.
No.
Yeah.
You're still going to need, you know, that support, and so a combination department, I think, is in the future for Sergeant Bluff.
Yep.
You know, and North Sioux and Lamar's are the 2 closest here that are showing how that's working, and I think there's going to be a lot of talks with people in those areas to see, hey, what did you like? What would you do a little bit
Well, there's some
differently?
models out there that you can kind of work. You know, you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel if you get to that point. Then.
And there's some others around that have some paid people, but they don't necessarily do the EMS, and so that I don't see that being an option. It's there, and so we're going to need to pick a model that does both.
Yeah. Okay. So let's shift gears then now, and from the fire stuff, because you know that's the majority of, I think, what you do. But you also have that other side of the aisle there, that, you know, the reserve deputy badge. So some law enforcement stuff. So I guess, how does one, I guess, either become a reserve deputy, or what got you interested in that? Like, you know, I know you're a guy that's out anyways in the community, and you're involved with stuff, and you're always, you know, and working with different people. So I could see it being a natural thing. We're like, hey, that looks cool. I guess I could do that now too, you know. But I mean, how does that, you know, how did that get started?
That started because I worked about 20 years part-time for the County Emergency Management Office, and the Sheriff's Office was looking for somebody to do medical on their SWAT team call-outs.
Okay.
And so that's where it started, because I was covered under the county's insurance. It all worked, and so that was the start of it. And they said, hey, would you, it sounds kind of interesting, sure. And it wasn't ever meant to go a lot further than that. And then, you know, just like any other entity, there's rules. They said, hey, we really need you to get certified, because that's okay. So went through the classes to get that, and they even sent me through the basic 40-hour SWAT school, which was pretty
fun.
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, you see how the other half lives, and you really appreciate what they do a lot more.
Yeah.
And the things that they have, and it's definitely helped on fire responses to understand things. And you get to a crime scene, and are a little more careful not to be the evidence eradication team.
Yeah.
You know, but they've got great people there, and I've stuck with it. And you know, sometimes it's community events, and you know, I got to over the years do a lot of patrol hours and see some things, and they've got amazing people that are working for those organizations, and it's nice to know the faces ahead of time, just like you guys. The more we know people when we get to a scene, the more you trust them, the easier it is to work through it. And so when you get these incidents where you have multiple agencies involved, it's a great thing to know.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. So, I mean, so you have like full like arresting capabilities. You can you know?
Reserve peace officers in the state of Iowa have the ability to do everything that the full-time, except for invoke implied consent, which is the OWI. I mean, if you stop somebody's going to do it. Now, does that mean we have the knowledge to do all that? No.
Yeah.
No, those men and women out there, they are amazing. So it's a support role.
Okay.
For the most part, being a cover car, you know, and they allowed me to do quite a bit. And so it's you learn about the system and how things work, and you know, some days it was getting to do some warrant work, and that was fun. Some days it's going to medical calls.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of it was trying to find the things that you could do to keep the full-time people freed up to do what they have to do. Because there's things there you'd be like, I don't know how you're going to figure that out, but you know, taking some of the lower hanging fruit, you know, hey, I hit a deer, I need to get a salvage tag, and I can do that.
Yeah.
Directed patrols in the communities to have a presence out talking to people, and there's some great people, I will say, in the Woodbury County Sheriff's Office that were willing to teach and train, and so it's been a good experience.
Good deal. How so with that, and then let's talk about your scouting and stuff, because I think you know, in you know, living at Sergeant Bluff for a number of years and stuff, like you said, you're just a guy that's kind of all involved with everything. But so did you get Eagle Scout?
I'm not. My dad was. My
Yeah.
dad was in the largest Eagle Scout class in the nation.
Wow.
Out of Hayward, Iowa, years ago. I think there were 12 of them that got their Eagle Scout together on the
Wow.
same
That's pretty
ceremony.
cool.
That is crazy.
So yeah, he had that, and you know, I was in Cub Scouts, and I started Boy Scouts a little bit. There wasn't many kids in, and I got out, and I was in college. They said, "Hey, Scoutmaster to me, would you come and help a little bit?" Yeah. You know, and I got some cool opportunities. You know, I got to, as an adult, I got to go to Philmont, and you know, on break we were talking about hiking. I mean, I was hiking in New Mexico for a backpacking trip for 12 days, and we get out into the Volvadal National Forest and hiking along bison, and
That's so cool.
we had bears in camp and rattlesnakes in camp, and you know, it was an experience. And then got out of that, you know, after a while as I was starting to have family, and then as my kids got in, I was their scout leader and kind of went up through, and you know, my oldest son is an Eagle Scout, and he got to do a lot of really cool things in that time, from what you'd think are the traditional things with camping to, you know, one year we were at a camp and he went for the whole week. It was down by Omaha, and he was in the union shops all week. It was a trades program, so he got to from plumbing to welding to surveying, which it was neat to see his eyes open for that. And I said, that's something that's never going to be taken away from you.
No.
I mean, that's
Invaluable. Yeah.
and
almost.
my youngest has got a couple things to finish up, and you know, hopefully in the next few months he'll have his done, and
Wow.
so it's a neat accomplishment for him.
Absolutely.
So it's been good for me. I've gotten to see a lot of places and meet a lot of people that way too. And,
Yeah.
you know, your lives combine. Sometimes you're at a camp somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden they find out your background, and you're maybe teaching a little bit, or you're taking care of somebody because something happens. You know, it happened when we were in the middle of New Mexico. One of the adults, we were out mountain biking, truly in the mountains, and hit a rock, hit his head.
Oh no.
We weren't sure what we were going to do, but you know,
Right.
I was glad that I could take care of that.
Yeah. Well, and for the boys, you know, for that Eagle Scout is kind of I mean, that never looks bad on a resume for
No,
them and stuff
no.
or anything. I mean, that's a pretty big honor when they get to that.
Yeah, no, it's been good, and you know, as you're a parent, you want to try and stay involved with what your kids are doing and help out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got a picture of my youngest. You were coaching flag
I was
football
gonna say
with them
with flag
even.
football. Yeah, I think it was some we had Cy when. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was. Jesus, I can't even remember. It must have been I think it had to have been Judd on that team.
Yeah.
Maybe it was,
Yes, I was on the young end of it.
Yep, yeah, and Judd was, So I mean, that's a long time ago when he was like, this tall. He's not this tall anymore. No. Well, yeah, and your other in Carson, I had Carson out at Witt and stuff for the semesters out there and stuff. So and I've helped and kept in contact with him because through the hiring process and making lists, he's text back and forth, kind of helped him out and gave him pointers and stuff. So he's super excited to make the list. He was very.
I remember that phone call as soon as he told me he made the list.
Yeah.
So he was excited.
Yeah. So it's going to be as a parent and stuff, that's pretty exciting, especially for a family that's kind of ingrained now in the fire service, and that's a thing that he's that's something he really wants to do. So anything else about your family like you'd like to talk about or add?
No, the fire service has been good. My brother and sister both have done it.
So who drug who into, because
I was
Nick?
first.
Okay, because Nick, I need some fuel for Nick because he lives down the street.
He does.
From me, so
a lot of people think he's the older brother because
he looks
the part, and
Yep.
He's preparing to star in Grumpy Old Men Part 3.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
He's going to have a leading role in that.
That makes sense.
But no, he got in a couple years after I did,
Okay.
and he's done it for a long. He's not quite to. I think he's pushing 30 years. He's not quite there yet, but. Sister did it for a long time. She still keeps her EMT up, but she went through and got certified as a firefighter as well. And then my daughter got on when she was 16, and she liked the medical part way more. She's a nurse. She was on the trauma floor down at Nebraska Med, and now she's moved on to be into surgery. Cool. And Carson's still doing it. He's on the state side at the airport as a career firefighter, and he's gotten to go around the country for that a couple times and see some things, and went down to Alabama for some training, and then my youngest just turned 17, so he's been on just over a year, and he loves it. He's thinking more the law enforcement route, but he's gonna work at getting all the fire certifications as well. He enjoys it. He enjoys going on the calls. He enjoys helping people. So it's been a great thing. It's allowed me to do a lot. It allowed me to change my teaching career, being in the fire service. And now that I'm teaching that.
Well, and when you look back at when you started and got got out and then got hired on and started Sergeant Bluff, at 18 and stuff, and then spent and where just that has gotten you. I look back even sometimes when I took my EMT. Post-secondary when I was in high school. So my high school paid for me to take my EMT class. And that was like, if I look at where I'm at now, that was the best thing I ever did because getting my EMT there put me on a path to get to where I'm at now, and you look at yourself, the same kind of thing, you start there and, here you are with the Career Academy and helping how many kids and inspiring how many kids to, basically that's their, so 20 years down the road, they're gonna be like, I took, Mr. Gaul's Career Academy. I went through that, and now they're an officer on a full-time fire department someplace. And looking back, that it's those choices we make at one time that in this line of work that set you on that path that to look back. It's kind of a.
It's going to be fun in a few years to see.
Yeah,
it's like I said, I've got three in career fire service and about 16, 17 on volunteer departments right now. But then. Some of them have branched off into law enforcement, emergency management, healthcare. If you were going full-time military, awesome. And then looking at within the military doing fire or medical or even one thinks they want to be an MP. So
nice.
And it all this works together. The more that they can understand each side of the road here.
Yeah. You guys got anything else?
No, just. You can definitely tell the amount you've put into the community. And it's coming back full circle now with people getting hired, like you said, on different departments and even our department. And now your kids, you're getting to see your kids kind of. It's like, God, I thought I was going to steer you away from that. But nope. It's just like me. It's just,
and your passion shows.
Yeah.
Your passion's very
definitely.
clear, and you can tell that it comes very natural. And this community is very lucky to have you around between the Career Academy, Sergeant Bluff. Someone's got to do it, right?
They do. It's hopefully it just keeps growing, and hopefully we see that end result.
And I think didn't you get some kind of award for the Career Academy too just this year? Wasn't there some
I
kind
did.
of
I
big
had
deal?
some students nominate me, and it was the regional teacher of the year through Powell Broadcasting. So that was
Pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
that was
Well
that was
deserved.
a very nice surprise.
Yeah,
Very nice,
There you
yeah.
go. Oh yeah, we got to hit the. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Love
A
it.
round of applause, right? Round of applause. No, that's
Underutilized.
pretty cool, especially if it was the students that nominated you.
Yeah.
'Cause I know the kids, the ones we had, they had a lot of fun at your class and stuff, and I don't think anybody really has a bad thing to say about you for if they have you for class. So that's always a good thing, right? When you're pretty positive stuff. So, yeah. Anything else you want to add? Words of advice, words of like just knowledge bombs, anything that you want to.
No, I just put my little plug in for the Career Academy. I mean, if you have any of you know or any students around here, I mean, we're not just taking Sioux City students. We've had South Sioux, we've had Dakota Valley.
Where do they go to find out information about the Career Academy and to sign them up if they want to get into that?
They can call the school district and ask, or if they're specifically interested in the fire stuff. I mean,
Yep.
they could even message us through social media even.
Okay. Because we'll put the links in the description for the
Yeah.
thing for anybody that wants to get that. So Sioux City Community School District, that's who they need to contact them.
It's all run through the Sioux City Community School District.
Okay.
So they can get information there, and then we've got agreements with South Sioux and Dakota Valley, Heelan, Siouxland Christian already set in place.
Mhm.
We've had Westwood and Woodbury Central. And
Yeah.
we've had one from Sergeant Bluff. We're hoping to get another one there.
Cool.
And a lot of it, those districts have to agree
Yep.
as well, and
Yeah.
and they have procedures and policies that have to be followed.
Okay. And then also follow the Career Academy on Facebook, because like I said, they post you
Yeah.
guys. Who takes the pictures? Who actually does the posting? Is it
But
you?
it's me. I'm
Is
a
it you?
one-man show.
Okay.
But sometimes I'll get students to take a few and
Yeah.
send them. But
Yep.
it's.
But
it's
no, I mean,
blossomed.
you guys during school. I mean, you're every day, at least something
Yeah.
every day, which is the way to do it
Yeah,
with any of
definitely.
that social media. But it keeps and it's showing the cool stuff for the kids,
And
that to really get into it.
South Sioux just reached out. They kind of wrote it into their SAFER grant. Their
Oh,
goal is
okay.
to recruit, I want to say 14 more high school students over the next few years. And
Wow.
so I just got a text from their coordinator, and they're wanting to get them over to take classes and then get them involved in their department. And so the more we can do, the better. I mean, it's
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to help all of us,
Yep.
because one of these days I'm going to be on the other end of this asking for the help.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Needing somebody to come and pick me up or
Yeah,
help
wouldn't
me.
that be
and-
wouldn't that have to be the thing? Is like you like some kid does it. You do a rig tour during Fire Prevention Week, and then later on they go to the Career Academy, and then later on and they get in there on the fire service, and then it's like they're calling you're calling them for a lift assist.
Oh,
and
and
they're
they're
coming to
coming to
pick you up.
help, yeah.
You're like, hey, I remember when I was like 4 years old. You came to my school, and then I came to your thing and this, and then now they're picking you up.
Yeah.
And when that that's the full circle.
It
thing,
is.
right? Yeah, when that happens.
I already
so.
have mine planned for when I go.
Yeah.
How bad it's gonna be.
Yeah.
You can't say that one.
I'm gonna be wearing a Ben Moorhead shirt, an old Sioux City Fire Ben Moorhead shirt.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, wow, that guy let himself go.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Ryan Baker, wow, he looks great now.
Got more hair.
Better, and better looking too. So if you guys still got anything else for Anthony, we could do a quick fill us in, fill me in, fill us in, fill them in.
Fill the world.
Department update. Just because some big things happened here just last couple months and stuff. The biggest thing, if people and you can see it on Facebook, and actually the city of Sioux City on their Facebook just put a big read on it and stuff, and some
Rich
good pictures.
Anderson's retirement.
Yeah, the Rich Anderson training tower. I don't know if that's what the official name is, but
I thought we were
but
calling it Captain Bukite
but
Tower.
There's something with the numbers, right? Isn't that
it's
how-
his
how-
employee
It's
number.
his employee
Employee
number.
It's
number.
the
The
address,
address
and I
is his
can't
employee
remember
number. He
what
left
it
his
is. But
staple
yeah,
on
but
there,
yeah. Well, and he said talking to it today. He said there's a few more Easter eggs on the tower
I'm
and
sure
stuff
there is.
to find. You'd have to look through when you're paying
Nice.
attention. But yes, the new training tower, fabulous facility.
Did you guys watch the press conference on that?
I did not.
It was actually very good.
Was
Captain
it?
Anderson did a good job.
Yeah,
it was
no,
good.
it's so anybody driving by on 18th Street, it's hard to miss because it's the giant building behind behind the training center. It's a giant building there, but yeah, it is multi-story, multiple burn rooms, pick points, high angle anchor points up high, multiple windows, doorways, roof props, different levels of stuff. But with the live burn side of it, what's the huge thing that's going to be for us is that before when we had the burn cells, it's basically go in the door, turn left, and the fire's there, or go in the door, turn right, and the fire's there, and that's it. There's one door, one door in, one door out. Now, is it good for my WIT kids? Yes. Is it good for a brand new firefighter that's never been exposed to heat or fire? Yeah, you can watch the fire develop in the different stages and stuff, feel a little bit of heat and get something, or the career, or not the Career Academy, the Citizens Academy, when they would do, is it great for that kind of stuff? Sure. For us, it's like, okay,
left, right.
Yeah, but what this does now is that, when you've got a second story burn room, and now depending on, just like on a real fire, we read the conditions and stuff, you do your size up, you do your 360, you see where the smoke is, where it's coming out, what it looks like, and now you pick your entry point and your attack point, and you're actually dragging hose through a floor plan of a house, upstairs, stairwells, down hallways and stuff, and actually adding a lot more to it, so that's going to be really, really cool for us.
Like Captain Anderson said, the possibilities are going to be limited only to our imagination.
We can do absolutely.
He showed it. You can enter the second level and pretend you got a basement fire now. He was pretty excited about that.
Fantastic
and which that has not been a thing before, really, unless the state trailer came. And even that state trailer, it's go down, around, and you're there. And for this now to actually have, and to come down and actually wind through stuff,
all
and
the
then
walls
room
are
to
movable.
and room to throw clutter in that you got to climb over and everything. So it's going to be real cool. And then hopefully, I think that the big picture on that is to make it like a regional area, so others outside departments and stuff can come and utilize that facility.
And that's only going to help us, with our relationships and getting better together. And just gung-ho about it.
I know it is. It is awesome. So, and with that, Captain Anderson, today is his last day on the job, and he's going to be retiring after close to 30-year career.
30 years.
Close to 30-year career, I think here. So today's his last day. So we're going to be
boogieing out.
we're going to go and surprise him a little bit. Which, since we could say we're going to surprise him because it'll get cut in later because we haven't recorded yet. But it's a thing, so we can say he's going to surprise him, and it's still surprising him. But we're going to go bump down there here in a little bit. But with that, though, his replacement, because we did have two promotions then, was Dave Buchheit got promoted to captain, and is going to take over that training officer position. I think Dave's going to do a fantastic job. Dave's a pretty smart guy. He's motivated. He's got some ideas, and younger, and I mean, I think he's just, Dave's going to do a good job. And then Brian Malcolm got promoted to lieutenant, so that's exciting. So the promotional list, expired on the lieutenants. They filled it, ran through all of it. Big thing for USAR. USAR did get deployed. We had a big deployment for those guys. Went over to Davenport to help out the second half of the Iowa Task Force 1 with the Cedar Rapids team and stuff. So Cedar Rapids. They were initially on scene, and then our Sioux City guys went for a few days and deployed over there and helped them out on the building collapse and stuff. So 9 members went to that. And then fire.
I know, talking to them, they were like 5-6 days, 12-hour ops.
Yeah.
Or they would rotate. I think they were the day shift. But
I got friends that work over on Davenport and the ambulance service over there, and they said the guys were awesome. And
they were.
Yeah, but they're like 12-hour shifts, like just round the clock going through that. And they were. It sounded like, I mean, when they're picking through, it's not like you take big excavators and backhoes and stuff. It's like buckets,
one
like
brick at a time.
It's like a plastic pail of taking stuff out of just picking it. So long days out there, and but all those guys, the comments that came back to the department were everything was real positive with those. And then we had a group of fire and EMS probies both finished their probation and stuff with Morin and Chase and Weathers. Weathers finished their fire probation. In fact, I got Chase. I've had him for his first so his first shift was someplace else. His last 2 shifts floating have been out to 8s and stuff. So so he's you can tell he's a good kid. But and I had Chase in class out at WIT. So here I had Chase in class, and now I got Chase on.
That just means you guys are old.
I know, that's what I'm thinking. And then our EMS probies too, which was with Joe and Jessica and Loof, all finished up their EMS probation, and Joe's actually got his paramedic too. I had Joe as when he started when I was still at Fords, I had Joe as EMS probie, and then when he was going through his medic class, so it's neat to see him finish that medic class and then continue on, and now pass his medic and do his paramedic orientation to continue on and stuff. So
and Dan had a baby on top of it.
Yeah,
as he was finishing.
yeah.
So
yeah, so
That's
just
true.
lots of and Dan was one of the guys. He was from a Sergeant Bluff guy too, right? Yep. So
Deal.
another all that. So lots going on.
Awesome. Thanks
Always
for that.
busy, always.
Yeah.
Something.
Is that it? Is that all we got for the day?
That's I think that's all I got.
Perfect. Thanks for that together. That's a really good call. There has been a lot of stuff going on. So.
Yeah, like I said, that training tower, that the new, that's probably the biggest thing.
It's gonna
and
be
stuff,
sweet,
and it's,
man.
like I said, and it's a cool thing to see when you're driving by. It just it looks awesome. But yeah.
All right, Ryan, you want to drop the tones for us? All right, today's Captain Anderson's last day in Sioux City Fire Rescue. We wanted to give him a very underwhelming gift of his very own Before the Tones Draft coffee mug. Cap, thanks for letting us use the training facility to record. Congratulations on a great career. Been a mentor to a lot of us. And question I could ask you: any advice to people on the job still, any new people coming on?
Continue to learn. That's the biggest thing. Keep learning. It's the only way to stay ahead of the game is to keep learning. So, thank you.
Phenomenal. No doubt about it, you left the department much better than you found it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Congratulations. Enjoy retirement.
Thank you.
And I think one of the best things, or one of the things I took from and will always take for you, because I've been driving for you for years, and I think to me you were about the first person that I heard coin the phrase "train your replacement," and you ingrained that into my head as your driver and stuff, and I've continued that, to keep that now as a captain and stuff. But that "train your replacement," you were the first person that I can remember that coined that phrase here. So
Thank you.
Rich.
Thank you.
Cap,
Uh,
known you a long time.
Thank you.
Sad to see you go. You definitely did leave this place and the fire service better than you found it. So
Thank
I
you.
appreciate everything you've done for me and everyone around here. So thank you.
Thank you.